Welcome. Today we're going to be looking at 3D camera tracking and a little bit of Mocha inside of After Effects. So 3D camera tracking is what it is. It's tracks details inside our footage clip and lets us put in things like text or null objects or stock footage elements, green screens, chroma keyed actors into backplates, as they're called. And Mocha is a planar tracker, which will track large planes compared to individual points, such as what After Effects does. But a Mocha will be tracking this rock face here, and that will then allow us to mask out the edge of the cliff a hell of a lot easier than you could do it inside of After Effects on its own with animated masks. But for now, we're just going to be looking at Mocha's masking capability. Okay, so we right click on the footage, then we go to track and stabilize, and then track camera. We've got a bunch of different options here that After Effects gives us. We can go into advanced, and we can switch it from auto detect to typical mostly flat scene tripod pan. Auto detect will do the job 9 times out of 10, and then we can just hit analyze and let After Effects do its thing. And it does take up a fair bit of your computer resources, but for the most part, you're going to be fine, you know. And there's very little else for you to do. After Effects just do it all. And then when it's done, you get this. And After Effects will give you all these tracking points all over your footage. Green being the best and most useful, down to red, which are a little less reliable. And now with the camera tracker effect selected, I start shift clicking on a bunch of points. It can be a whole load of them. It can be, or a minimum of 3. But either way, I'm selecting a bunch of green ones here, and that's telling After Effects where I want the ground plane to be, and it shows the ground plane with that target bullseye icon. Then I right click on one of the selected points and hit create text and camera. That creates a 3D camera for me and some text, which I'm just changing the typeface here. Rotate it 90 degrees so it's vertical. Play it back a little, scrub through the timeline. Look at that, perfect. Alright, so I'm going to apply text somewhere else. I'm going to look around in my shot. Where would be a good place for me to put some text? There, I think. And it's put it in quite small to start off with, so I'll scale it right up. And again, it just looks super nice. I've got this text in here, and we're going to mask it out from the cliff face using Mocha. So with the footage layer selected, I go up to animation and go down to track and bars effects Mocha. And I go to launch it, and it gives me this error message because my footage isn't at 100%. So I'm changing it to 100%, auto to 100% full, and we go into Mocha. Mocha is a planar tracker, and the first thing we're going to do is put down what's called X splines. And that's going to track a large plane in our shot, and in this case it's the rocky cliff. And by hitting the track left and right buttons over there on the left side of the interface, you can see that Mocha has pretty much locked that tracking data onto the shot, and even to the point where it almost runs out. And then we get the error message where there's literally no more space, but that's more than enough for what we need for this for today. Scrubbing through it, you can change it up at any point, changing the name from layer 1 to tracker. And now I'm using the B spline to draw a more accurate mask around the rock face. I'm changing the color, I'm calling it mask, and I'm linking the mask to the tracker. So I know the tracker is good, and that's going to pull the mask around based on how good the tracker is. I can go in at various stages and fine tune it ever so slightly. Again, the tracker is doing all of the animation. It's twisting it and pulling everything, the entire mask as a whole all around. But for the most part, it's Mocha doing the hard work. Now you will have to go in, and it can, you know, it can take a while. But again, Mocha does most of it. You can do this with masks in After Effects, but this is definitely the easiest way for me anyhow to do this kind of thing, especially on large irregular shaped objects such as a rocky cliff face. Spend as much time as you need on it, be as accurate as you can, and it'll pay dividends. Then when you're done, go up and save it by pressing that button there, and then close the window, and it takes you back to After Effects. And back inside After Effects, I'm duplicating my footage layer, deleting the camera tracker, and I'm renaming the layer Matte. And if I go into Mocha, I hit View Matte, and I can see what the matte will actually look like. It also gives me the option to create AE masks. Turn off the View Matte option, and now I've got two masks from both the tracker and the mask inside of Mocha. So I'm turning off the tracker mask. I just want the mask. And you can see straight away by changing the color of my text that it's made a really good matte or mask over the text using the edge of the cliff face there. Gonna add some more text into the scene. Right click on the original camera tracker layer. I'm going to call this text Sasquatch. Certainly one of the best words in the English language for me. Really love how it sounds. Now we've got the word Sasquatch. Let's add a real Sasquatch into the scene. So I'm just putting in some stock footage. I've copied and pasted the scale and position of our text layer onto the 3D footage, and there we go. It fits perfectly into the scene. Looking good. I'm adding some levels to help composite it a little better. It's quite bright, oversaturated. And I'm adding a tritone effect to help finish it off. It's not the best of composites, but you know, you get the idea. Now I hit Ctrl K to bring up my composition settings, and I'm changing the 3D render from Classic 3D to Cinema 4D render. And this is going to help me get a really nice thick extrusion on my text. So go to extrusion depth, change it up to something like 20, seems to work. And then I go to animate and side and color RGB. And that's going to let me change the color on the sides of my extruded text layer or shape layer if that's what you've picked. And now moving the 3D text, and I'm going to move it over in front of the waterfall. So I've created a new null, copy and paste the position onto the Sasquatch text. Maybe down there would be a bit better. Yeah, that'll do for now. Nice. And now I want to pre-compose my chunky 3D text. So I'm duplicating my 3D camera as well. And main reason being is that I need the 3D camera in the scene for my Yeti, footage of the Yeti. I'm changing my 3D render back to Classic 3D for my main composition, so I can add some effects to the text layer, which I can't do once the Cinema 4D renderer is in charge of the composition settings. Let's go back out to our main waterfall comp, and I've duplicated my text. It no longer has the 3D extrusion, and I've changed the color to make it more like a shadow, and I'm adding the displacement map effect, and I've picked the background waterfall layer as the displacer, and I've changed the horizontal displacement to luminance and the vertical displacement to luminance and bumped it up just a little. Also adding a bit of Gaussian blur to blur the shadow layer somewhat, and then push it back away from to give a bit of separation from our main 3D text layer. Just give it a little bit of subtle shadow, and you can always scale it down if you need. Change your transparency somewhat. 40% seemed to do the trick just there. Again, subtlety is the key with this one. Play it back. I'm really impressed with the job that Camera Tracker does on well shot footage. You know, it's been able to lock my footage in there no problem. And if we copy our same workflow, we can do it on another part of the world where there's lots of Yetis. And here we go, we got this dude climbing up the cross-country skiing up the mountain because he's a G, what a guy, to be confronted with a couple of dancing Yeti. Oh well. And again, that's just copying the same workflow, you know, Camera Tracker, right click, add text and camera, and then a little bit of masking and planar tracking inside of Mocha. think I've added a position animation on the Yetis to push them up a bit. Yeah, usually when the camera tracking works, it works really well. It's really is good fun actually to throw some text and dancing abominable snow people in there. Hope you folks give Camera Tracker a whirl, see you get on with it. Really good fun to use. You can do some awesome stuff with it very, very quickly, very, very easily. So yeah, I'll leave you to it. Catch you in the next one.